welcome to United Hour, your one-stop shop for all things Manchester United. I'm your host, Nick.
And I'm Imran.
We are here recording on Tuesday. The transfer window closed yesterday, so lots to talk about there.
Slammed shut. Didn't close, slammed shut, remember?
Well, it's still open in a couple of countries, which we will come to as well, because we're hopeful there still might be some more business being done. But yeah, plenty going on in the transfer window. And in fact, we had two podcasts last week, and I wasn't on either of them. I think Jamie and Ushwin recorded after the Fulham draw, and then you and Ed did an emergency pod, right, after Grimsby. You thought we might have a new manager by now.
I think a lot of people did, to be fair. But obviously not the case, and I think actually he seems a lot further away from being sacked than I think any of us probably thought after the Grimsby game.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't think he was going to get sacked, but I thought he might resign. And he's
that's what I thought. I thought he might walk away. Yeah, that's yeah.
And, you know, he's kind of made these comments even last season, Amorim, saying, oh, if the board don't believe in me anymore, I'm ready to leave without compensation. And at that time, I said, look, we've had an awful run under him, and if he's ready to go without compensation, maybe a fresh start in the summer is the best way. But no, he stayed, he was backed. I said on the podcast myself that I don't think he has many excuses at this point. We will talk about the transfer window very shortly, but I think he's had a pretty good transfer window and got most of the things. I think you're never going to get everything in one window, but we certainly should be doing better than we were, that's for sure. I mean, we will also talk about the Burnley game, but I think with the transfer window shutting, we need to start with the transfers, right? So I guess the main business we've done on the last day is bringing in a goalie. And I know, Imran, you particularly have been begging for that since the end of last season, haven't you?
Yeah, I thought it was as important as getting a striker, as important as getting a midfield. I consistently said if we do not get a new goalkeeper, then we will continue to lose games. And, you know, the two games we've lost this season, Grimsby and Arsenal, have come directly because of our goalkeeper. So yeah, it's a good move. It's obviously a risk. Senne Lammens, the guy is, 23-year-old Belgian keeper with one real season of, you know, top-flight first-team experience, and that is in Belgium. But, you know, you would hope our scouts have done their work. He's highly rated in Belgium. They say this is the next tier but Courtois, so they won't say that without any reason. And I'm hopeful. To be honest with you, he doesn't have to be, you know, incredible. He doesn't have to be the next Lev Yashin to be good for us. He just needs to be a solid goalkeeper, and I'm hoping that's what he can be.
Yeah, I mean, I can't claim to have known much about him before we were linked to him. I actually hoped, because, you know, the other big one was obviously Emilio Martinez that we've been tracking, and at the end it looked like a deal couldn't be done for him. I mean, he's obviously much more proven. I know some people don't like him because of his antics and character, which I totally understand, but he's that Premier League proven player. You know, he's won World Cup, he's got all the experience, and he wanted to come, and that would have been much less of a gamble, obviously. But yeah, how much money Villa wanted for a player who's, I think, 32 now, Martinez?
He's 30, I think he's 33 today.
Right, okay, yeah. So yeah, he's obviously past his best, but, you know, keepers can go on for a while. You don't. It doesn't look like he's finished or anything, but the deal couldn't be done, and it sounds like that was something down to Jadon Sancho fucking us about again.
Jadon Sancho's always fucking us about. With Martinez, I think he looked like he was a bit on the decline last season. He had quite a few weird errors, the kind of errors that you might see Onana make, which, you know, not a good thing. I would have been happy if it had been like a loan or something under 20 million, but I don't think there's any way that Villa would have let him go for under 20 mil. I think he's contracted to like 2029 or something daft. So it just didn't seem feasible when we were linked with him. It was like, if we're going to spend 40, 35 million on him, I think that would have made him the most expensive goalkeeper over the age of 30 of all time, something like that. And one of the more expensive goalkeepers of all time, full stop. So it not a deal for me, really. I'm glad we avoided that. And I'd rather go for the, you know, unproven but potentially could be good kind of player in Lammens than Martinez, who I think, maybe he'd be good for a year or two, but I feel like we just have the same problem then in a year, where we've got a keeper who's probably not as good as he should be, and we need to replace him.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I am a bit worried about Lammens coming in from the Belgian league. He's played a few times Belgium under-21s. He's yet to get a cap for Belgium, although he has been in the squad. Obviously, they've got Courtois and a couple of other big-name keepers over there ahead of him. Royal Antwerp are not even the best Belgian team. He's not got much experience in Europe either. I think he has played one Champions League qualifier or something like that. So it is a gamble. It is a gamble, and it's one where you put faith in the scouts that they know what they're doing. I don't expect him to get chucked straight in either, really. He's not somebody who's coming straight in to start, whereas, Martinez, if he'd come in, you'd expect him to be starting the next game. Whereas at the moment, Lammens, I mean, it looks like our first choice is Bayindir, and I expect our next game coming up is actually the Manchester derby against Manchester City, and I would expect the goalie to be Bayindir.
Yeah, I think Bayindir keeps his place. You're bleeding Lemons slowly, but I would say that by the end of the season, you would hope he's our number one, and Bayindir's our number two, and Onana is on the moon.
Yeah, well, as we say, the transfer window is still open. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, I don't know if any others are open. I know Greece and a couple of other places have stayed open later in previous seasons. But for sure, Turkey and Saudi Arabia are still open. If we can get Onana out to either of those, I would be very happy. Weirdly, though, obviously, Bayindir being of Turkish origin, maybe that's the move that's going to make more sense. Whereas, out of the two, I would definitely hope we kept hold of him rather than Onana. No, I know you agree with that.
Oh, 100%. I don't think Bayindir is a terrible keeper. I don't think he's a very good keeper. I don't think he's a terrible keeper. Onana is a terrible keeper. Bayindir, if he just toughened up at corners and crosses and, eliminates his mistakes are like silly mistakes, apart from the corners, which are just poor, and we should be every week should be just training with a rugby team bundling about. But other than that, it's just like almost lapses of concentration types errors. Onana's errors are all down to the fact that he has just awful technique and poor decision making and poor everything else. But Bayindir kind of I feel like a run in the team, he might sort himself out and prove to be like an okay capable number two. So yeah, I'm definitely with you that Bayindir should be our number two, and we should be looking to get Onana out. Probably on, I doubt we could sell him, but probably on loan. Laurie Whitwell this morning said, I think in the Athletic, or an article in the Athletic, that something about how he came back to Carrington wanting a new contract, and it's been of a view that since receiving the standard 25% non-qualification for the Champions League pay cut, he wanted a bump up, and apparently that's not gone down with Ruben Amorim. And if that's true, then yeah, he has no place at this club anyway. But that sort of attitude, get out of town.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, out of all the players who might be saying, "Oh, I don't want to be taking a pay cut," he's the very last in the list. And I think with Onana, he's just lost confidence, and we've had goalies like that before. I mean, I remember all the way back to somebody like Jim Leighton, who was all right for a while, but then all of a sudden, when it goes, they don't recover, and he's in that kind of space. Bayindir, to be fair to him, as far as I'm concerned, it was a foul for that goal against Arsenal. People still remember a goal against, I think it was Spurs last season, and I think that was a foul as well. No VAR in the League Cup at that time. So there has been mistakes. He's not the best, but yeah, I wouldn't totally give up on him yet, whereas Onana is a lost cause, and we need to get him out wherever we can. So look,
and his distribution is genuinely really good. I don't know where it's come from, because last season he was just punting balls into play, but this season's distribution in so far has been excellent.
Well, we will talk about the Burnley game, but yeah, it starts from him. The second goal from Mbumo comes from a really good kick out that comes to flicked on by Xerxes, Dallo, and then Mbumo, basically. So yeah, that does start from the keeper. And so yeah, like I say, I'd still be okay with Bayindir. He's not the best keeper by far, but I think we can get away with it. But anyway, at least there's somebody there to challenge him. At least they're quite obviously now trying to push Onana out, and there's still some time left of the window to do that. I mean, if you had to rate the transfer window out of 10, what score are you giving us?
I gave it a 6 in my post, a 6.56 on Red Cafe. Lots of positives, but I think there's also a lot of negatives. So I've said positives are obviously Cunha. that's a very good transfer. Got him at a good price. If you have to factor in, what everyone else has costed this window, like Elanga's cost 55 million, Maduaki cost 55 million, etc., etc. Like that is the standard. The standard basically for a decent player this window has been 50 to 60 million, and I think Cunha is an above average player, so he's a very good player, to be honest with you. So that's fine. Embuemo, again, most positive. I think we could have possibly got him cheaper. I think our first bid for him was like 40 million. I think if we'd gone in straight away with 60 or something, we'd have got him a bit cheaper. But I think in the end, we got payment terms that were better, so it probably works out all right. Rashford loan, I think we were never going to get better than a loan for Rashford, so that's fine. And they're going to cover all his wages, so that's good. Højlund, we're not talking about that, but he's definitely gone now to Napoli. We got a loan fee of, I think, like 5-6 million euros, and they're going to pay 45 million euros if it works out, which it probably will, because it just needs them to get Champions League qualification and some appearances. So I think that's a really good deal. I do think there might be a player in Højlund, and I'm a bit sad to see him go, but in terms of selling a player, that's really good from us. Lammens, happy with the goalkeeper coming in, and Sesko, I'd put him in the positives too. It's a lot of money, but that's kind of the going rate for strikers. So any more positives from you other than them?
Yeah, look, at the start of this window, I had quite low expectations because Sir Jim was pleading poverty around Christmas time. We knew we still had some kind of PSR issues. It was never that clear. I remember saying at the end of last season, I thought we probably had about 100 million to spend, and then it depended on who went out. In the end, we have actually spent quite a bit more than that. I'm not counting money on like Højlund and stuff like that because officially he's still on loan. The only real proper sales we've made are Garnacho at 40 million, which I think is low. I think he's worth more than that, but it's that situation where he only wants to go to Chelsea. I'm sure we had bigger bids from other clubs, but he's kind of pushed his way through to Chelsea and we've taken a bit less than he's probably worth. And it's a similar situation for Anthony. In the end, we still own 50% of him apparently. So
no,
yeah, we don't.
No. He's gone for 20. I think it's 23 million euros or 22 million euros plus 3 add-ons, and then we get a 50% sell-on clause.
Yeah, exactly. But that's more or less like you've only really sold half of him. And again, it's
I think it's only 50% on the profit we make from him.
I'm not sure about that. Athletic are saying it is a pure 50% deal.
Oh, is it? Which makes me even more confident that they're never going to sell him. So I don't think we'll ever see that.
That is the problem with these deals. And we see it as well. Mason Greenwood is on the similar deal where apparently we still own 50% of his rights. They say it's sell-on clauses because you're not allowed kind of third-party, multi-club ownership of one player nowadays. But so it's written as a sell-on clause. But yeah, it's a similar situation to Garnacho. He only wanted to go to Real Betis where he did pretty well on loan. We definitely had bigger bids from him from, I don't know, Saudi Arabia and maybe some other options. But he wanted that. Betis have no money. They cannot afford 30, 40 million. So they've given us whatever, the 20 odd million that they can afford. And then, yeah, we see. But the problem is when you have these 50% clauses, it almost makes it impossible for that club to sell them. Because they're like, okay, if we sell Anthony for 50 million, we're only basically just getting back what we've paid for him, and we have to buy a replacement. It's the same situation on why Mason Greenwood is still at Marseille as well. So yeah, we'll see if these things ever pay out.
You went into my negatives here, but I agree. They were in my negative list. Ultimately, if you think about it, from Sancho, Anthony, and Garnacho, I think we've probably lost about 50 million this window. I'm not saying that's our fault or Ineos' fault. Like you said, Anthony only wanted Betis, Garnacho only wanted Chelsea. I think there is a bit of fault on us for the Garnacho for put him in very obviously in a bomb squad and ostracizing him. I think obviously if you'd be a bit cleverer, then maybe you retain his value. But ultimately, we've probably lost about 50 million this summer. For not through fault of our own, but you have to put that in a negative. That is a negative. We're not scoring Ineos this summer. We're scoring our window, and ultimately, if you lose out on 50 million quid for whatever reason, that's a negative.
No, definitely. And the whole bomb squad thing, I think, is a major mistake. It's the way, I don't know if it's Amarim's choice, if it comes from Wilcox or what, but totally like alienating these players, saying, you have to train away. We don't want to have anything to do with you. is obviously going to reduce their value. Whereas in the past, even if you have a player that you want out, you just say, right, you train with us, you go on tour, and when we get a deal, and we've seen it before. I remember even Eric Ten Hag when he bought Sancho back, and he was just like, yeah, Sancho can be an important player for us. The manager just sits there giving out that kind of message. Yeah, they can still be part of the squad and whatever, even though they have no intention of ever playing them. And it just, I think, does keep players' values up. It gives you a better negotiating position. But anyway, look, we wanted these players out. They have gone. But it's definitely lost some money on them. But as I said, I did start with the point. I was going to say the positive was that we've actually spent a lot more and bought in more players than I expected this summer. I thought we would buy a striker. And I thought maybe only one. And I'd only expected I thought we might be scrambling around for somebody like Jamie Vardy or like Wilson or somebody like that because we had no money. So the fact that we've then dropped nearly 200 million quid on Cunha and Bumo and Sesko, I didn't expect us to be spending that much. And I'm very happy with Mbumo, very happy with Cunha. Sesko, I am not sure about. I think we've paid a lot of money for him. It does seem that the striker market is inflated because there isn't many around. I mean, you see Bayern Munich paid 70 million for Nicholas Jackson, and he's a very average striker. But Newcastle have paid 60 million for Wisa, so yeah, it does seem to be the kind of going rate for any half decent striker nowadays. And it's still early days for Sesko, so I don't really want to be rating him just yet. But he's not shown much in his couple of brief appearances. But yeah, still early days for him. So yeah, in general, we have spent more than I expected. The attack, which was our biggest problem for sure, does seem to have been sorted out. My only question mark is, I now look at the team and I say, did we actually really need Cunha and Mbumo? We already had Mount. And it goes into a bigger question about who's playing where. Like, should Bruno be playing centre mid, or should he still be playing more in those number 10s? Should Ahmad be playing wing back, or should he still be a number 10? For me, it's a big question mark. Did we need to pay this much money for two kind of number 10s when we already had Mount, Ahmad, Bruno, Xerxes, who can all play in those kind of positions? It looks like Amrin has different ideas for a lot of those players, whereas, he sees Xerxes as a striker, he sees Ahmad as a wing-back, he thinks Bruno is now a central midfielder, and that is the kind of question marks. I think we would have been better off buying one of Cunha and Mbumo and spending that money on a central midfielder. That's what I would have preferred, but yeah, it's not the way we've gone.
I think it masks it by the fact that they're both two excellent number 10s. You know what I mean? I think if it was one great number 10 and one we're not sure about number 10, or it turned out to be a bit rubbish, then we'd be like, this was absolutely ridiculous. And I think we didn't need the new two number 10s, but the fact that they're both, of high quality does kind of soften that a bit. But you are right. We desperately need a midfielder. It's in my negative columns. We didn't buy a midfielder. It's a massive glaring hole in our team. We wouldn't have this problem if Ugarte was any good, but he just isn't. He's not kicking on at all. He's pretty awful, and that is hindering us massively, because it basically means, we've got Casemiro and Bruno as our two starting midfielders, and we've got Mainu and Ugarte, and that is literally it, unless we pull Mount in midfield, which he's not a midfielder. Bruno's not a midfielder. So we're really light. We bought... we were chatting in the WhatsApp group about this, but we've bought four midfielders in 7 years, and Liverpool have bought 5 in 3. It's just a massive area of the pitch that we're neglecting. It's probably the most important area of the pitch. That I don't see how that's anything other than a massive negative. Yeah, we obviously made sounds out about Belieber and whatever else, and we might go in for him next summer. I'm sure we probably will, but we still need something. We need someone or something in now, and that hasn't happened. And that's a massive negative in the negative column for me.
Yeah, that is the main thing that hasn't happened. But at the same time, as I say, we have actually bought and spent more money than I expected. So I can't really complain on that side. But yeah, whether they're the right players, the right areas, I don't know. The midfield is still the biggest question mark.
I've got two more negatives though before we do the break. Got two more. So my last two remaining negatives were, the Sancho loan again. It's a negative in the sense that he had decent offers from Chelsea and Rome, and we could have got actual money for him, but he's an asshole, so that's not happened. So it's, again, not our fault, but it is a negative. And I find, going back to the keeper, I find it crazy that this club needed to play games before realizing we needed a new one. Like, everyone with eyes could tell you we need a new goalkeeper this summer. And the fact that we've had to be dumped out of a cup and lost. And I know you say it's a foul. It probably is a foul, but it's still like, he could be stronger by India in that Arsenal game. Like, we lost that game. A strong keeper, we don't lose that game, and we're out of a cup because of Onan. And this wouldn't have happened if we just got a number one in earlier in the summer. And if he was a decent one, obviously, but I just find it crazy that it's just poor planning for me. That is poor planning that we're getting a goalkeeper in at the last day of the window. And yeah, you could say, we've been in for Lammens all summer, but why was it not done earlier then? So not great. And the last negative, and you'll back me on this one, is Alvaro Carreras, or is it Alvaro Fernandez? Obviously, nothing we've done this window, but he literally went for 50 million this window. He's a 50 million euro left back, and we sold him for 5 million. Again, not the fault of anyone here, but how can that not be a negative?
Yeah, crazy stuff like that. I mean, yeah, we can look at a lot of players. I mean, there's a long list of players we've got rid of, bought in, spent a big money on their replacements, and they've been much worse than the one we've got rid of. I mean, as I said, we got rid of Alvaro and bought in Malacia, and he's still hasn't found anywhere to go. I mean, I don't want to blame a player for being injured, but yeah, that is just like the situation. And yet there's a long list of them. We now see somebody like Elanga getting a big move, whereas we sold him for 20 and paid like 90.
To be fair, at least we got 20 million for Elanga, and I think at the time we all thought that was probably okay business. And I think we got a bit of a sell. So I think all in all we made about 25 million from Elanga, which feels about right. And he kicked on in a way that I don't think anyone thought, and he's probably not even worth 55 million to be fair. But I mean, we sold Carreras for 5 million. I mean, that's
I mean, the other one's McTominay that we sold for like 25.
I mean, we said at the time that was too cheap.
On the time that how are we selling Scott McTominay? He's scoring goals for Scotland. He's scoring goals for Man United for like 25 million, and then we basically replaced him with like 60 million Ugarte, who, to be fair, I have not given up on. I have seen good games from Ugarte. I'm hoping he just still can kick on, and he's had a bit of just a slow start to the season, but let's see. I have not given up on Ugarte yet. I have seen before him have decent performances for us. But yeah, look, generally, that's where we're at. We will take a quick break. There is still a little bit more to talk about on transfers, and then we will talk about the Burnley match. Yeah, just rounding off the transfer business. As I say, the window is closed. We have mentioned the four kind of major signings we made. There is one other, Diego Leon, who was signed more like Christmas time. He is part of the squad now, has been on the bench a couple of times. We don't expect to see him that much because, I mean, he's not played any game yet at all. But he's obviously been preferred to Harry Amas. He went out on loan yesterday. He's gone down to Sheffield Wednesday. I think that's not a bad deal if somebody can play regularly in the Championship. Toby Collier also left. We were talking about midfield options. Last year, he played quite a few games. He's gone to West Brom on loan. And if those players can play regularly in the Championship, I think that's pretty decent. Several other of our youth players have left, but they've either gone Division 1, Division 2, or somebody went out to Falkirk in Scotland, I know Jamie was mentioning. But yeah, I kind of think you want to be seeing your players play bare minimum in the Championship. But you remember in the old days, we used to always loan players, youth players, and they'd end up playing for other Premier League teams. It doesn't seem to happen anymore, does it?
Yeah, I mean, look, Chelsea seems to loan players to Premier League clubs, though. It's just not something we do, really. I mean, to be fair, Brighton were in for Manu, apparently. But obviously we've not let him go correctly because we have no midfielders. So, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. And you mentioned Højlund. That has now been done. It is officially just a loan, but I haven't looked at the deep details of what the option triggers all that is. But nowadays, when players go on loan, I just expect they're coming back to us because we've had it with Rashford, we've had it with Sancho. We can never get rid of them. They just keep coming back again and again. I'm
pretty sure it's if Napoli qualify for the Champions League and he makes like a certain amount of appearances, which is going to probably be like 10 or 15 or 20. It's if we, I mean, again, if we are competent, and I'm sure we are, he probably won't come back here.
Yeah, but we didn't expect to see Sancho back here, did we? And
that was the weirdest loan in the world, though, that one.
He's still officially a Manchester United player. He has gone on loan to Aston Villa. The story is apparently that United and Villa had agreed a straight swap deal. Martinez for Sancho. But Sancho refused to go permanently. He wanted to only go on loan, mostly just to milk us for every penny he can still get for unpaid wages or get like a free transfer next summer where he'll get bigger. I don't know. We do still have an option on him. And I don't know whether they would still activate that option in the hope of getting some actual cash in for Sancho next summer. I don't know. Or whether he's just now, going to be allowed to leave on a free. But Sancho now goes to the top of my list as worst Manchester United transfers of all time. And there is big competition for that list, isn't there? I mean, I don't know if you have anyone who can top him for being the worst, just because of like how little he's offered for us.
Sancho.
Yeah, how little he offered for us, falling out with managers, writing things on social media. I can't remember a good game or important goal he ever scored for us. And just, a waste of space, basically. Utter waste of space. Like I say,
terrible.
Top of the list of worst transfers we've had. And we've had a lot. We've had a lot of bad transfers. But you have people like Onana and whatever who just play badly, but at least they don't have a bad attitude. At least they're not slagging off the manager in public and things like that. That's what takes Sancho to the top of that list. But look, transfer window is now closed. Ruben Amorim has been back to stay on, and I do think it's the right decision. I think it's too early in the season to be changing. Even at the end we drew with Fulham, and we should have really won that game. We lost to Grimsby. It was a bit of a mess. It does happen. I remember being at it was under Van Gaal. We lost to MK Dons 4-0. I mean, it was a much weaker team he put out that day. I think that was the bigger issue that people had with that one, that Amorim put out a pretty strong team. And the biggest issue is that we're not in Europe. So the Cups have so much more importance, and we're already out of it. So basically, we're just looking at the FA Cup, which I think now doesn't even start till about January, does it?
No.
So we've got basically just one game a week now until January because we're out of the League Cup. I think there might be the odd Premier League midweeker, but we're more or less one game a week until January. That should at least help the manager. And I think generally the biggest issue is that people just want to see us playing well. So look, we're 3 games in, Premier League games. How are you feeling about how we're playing in general?
It's hard to say because you look at we're top of the XG table, aren't we? I mean, you'll love that. I know you'll love that.
Well, we're second in the one second, I like. Sorry. I like Understat, and it's not much. They've got Chelsea at 7.75. We're at 6.94. And quite a long way ahead of then it's Brighton 5.7, City 5.7. So we are currently second or first, depending on which XG source you use in the table. So look, we are creating chances, still issues on finishing them. I mean, we're more. Burnley has been our last game. We're at 4.02 for that. We did get 3 goals out of it. But Arsenal, we were at 1.3, didn't get any goals. Fulham, we were at 1.8, just ahead of them, and should have really come out better. But we are in statistically creating at least the first or second most chances out of all the teams in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know what to make of it all, really, because we are essentially playing well, kind of. We're making a lot of chances, but at the same time, own goal is our top scorer. We needed a last-minute penalty to beat Burnley at home, which might not have been given on another day with a more incompetent VAR. It's and every time a team attacks us or comes forward, it looks like they're going to score, which not a great sign either. There is issues in midfield with people being able to run through us a bit easily. There is issues at the back where I feel like our 3 centre backs, Yoro, De Ligt, and Shaw, are actually playing well, more or less. But then there's pretty much every game, they all do something daft or switch off or just let the opposition in too easily, and then we concede because a shot on goal for us, we might as well just give them a goal. So it's an odd one. I think we'll have a better picture after the Chelsea and City games as where we're at, but then also we kind of raise our games for these big games. So who knows where we're at? Who knows?
No, and yeah, I'd largely agree with that. I think going forward, you can definitely see a lot of improvement. We are creating chances. You can see what Amarim's trying to do. He's obviously been practicing on the training field because you see a lot of quick passes going forward. Overloads is his big thing in like wide areas. That is what he's aiming for, and that is working. It is working. We are creating chances, and with bringing in players like Cunha and Mbumo is obviously going to help that as well. And Mbumo has got 2 goals. I know own goal is officially our Premier League top scorer, but Mbumo does have 2 goals because he did score a nice one at Grimsby as well. So he started well. Cunha is very unlucky not to have scored yet. We still have a question mark over striker. Sesko seems not that ready yet. He's a youngish player. Maybe he's going to take a bit of time to get up to speed. But I think Xerxes should be starting up front, whereas Cunha has been starting. And now that was the big negative actually from the Burnley game is that Cunha and Mount go out injured, and both been playing pretty well. I'd say both been playing pretty well. I don't know whether they're short-term injuries and whether they will be okay. We're now on international break, the dreaded international break. So yeah, we've still got a couple of weeks now till the next game against Manchester City. So don't know if either of them will be available by then. But yeah, that was the big negative from that Burnley game. We did, of course, win it. We got 3 points, but far from convincing. It's a last-minute penalty. We give away 2 goals to a pretty average Burnley team. And like you say, defensively, there's still massive questions, and I don't know whether it's players who are not understanding the system, not buying into the system. But between midfield and defence, there's definitely still a major issue. And I agree with you as well. Like, Yoro is a good player. De Ligt is a good player. Shaw is a good player. Maguire is a good player. But I don't know. It's just, we're still just giving away absolutely stupid goals. I mean, if we look at this Burnley game, we're like cruising. We're like 2-0 up, looking comfortable. You're like, a relatively easy win at Old Trafford. How many is it going to be? And then all of a sudden, it's panic stations. And it just seems often like, and teams don't need many attacks again. As Fulham as well, we were like looking pretty comfortable. And all of a sudden they score one and you see that nervousness coming in. And the manager has to deal with this, right? It's all about him. This is his system. And he's sticking with that 3 at the back, but it's not working. And that first goal, Lyle Foster comes in, he scores. De Ligt and Dalot are basically arguing. If you watch the goal back, you can see De Ligt is telling Dalot, go to the player. Dalot's doing something else. And that is the problem. That is the problem. It's organisationally, lack of leadership on the pitch, not maybe buying the manager's system. And it's things we've talked about, though, for ages. Like, we've been doing this podcast for a long time. And I remember talking about lack of leadership, lack of organisation in the defence for at least 2 or 3 previous managers. And it's still a problem now. So I don't know how we're going to solve that.
I mean, I think this season, it's obviously a small sample size, but I think pretty much every single goal we've conceded has either come from a set play or from someone just not being picked up in the middle of the box, or at the side, someone basically being able to run into our box scot-free. So, I mean, the Fulham game, Smith Rowe, I think, ran off Bruno.
Yeah.
Again, he's not a midfielder. That happens with Bruno. He'll ignore his man sometimes and they'll just run off. The beginning of the Grimsby game, left hand side of the box, guy again ran through, completely unmarked. And then obviously this one, Foster, and smack bang in the middle of it. It's not even like he's literally in the middle of the goal, completely unmarked. And you have to say it's a problem with the system because a player's just not able to understand when they need to pick up a man because there's extra defenders and they think that someone else is, or is it easier when you're in a 2 because that's my man, that's your, like, is it harder to communicate amongst 3? Whatever it is, they need to sort it out because people constantly keep on just appearing unmarked in our box.
Yeah, and other teams are obviously exploiting it. We saw at Fulham, the opposition manager talked about it. He said, we know where we can find spaces. We know how Man United are going to set up. And that's exactly what they did. Like you say, Smith Rowe gets in. They know they can find those spaces in between lines, in between the kind of 3s. In theory, if you've got 3, you should never have anybody unmarked. But it's a zonal system. It's not a man-to-man system. And I think that often causes confusion. Who's your zone? Do you pick up the player? Are you sticking in your area? And it's not working. That is the problem. And now he's got a pretty settled lineup. It is quite clearly Bruno, Casemiro in midfield. He's gone for De Ligt, Yoro, Shaw as his kind of preferred three. Mazraoui is now fit again. I don't know whether he would come into that. I personally think that it is a mistake that Harry Maguire is not playing. I think he is a better organiser and a better leader than De Ligt at the moment, even though De Ligt is probably the superior player just because he's obviously younger, faster, ready to be dealing with that. I do think that maybe Harry Maguire is unlucky not to be playing in these matches and that it would help. But at the same time, we did concede 2 to Grimsby while he was playing there. So yeah, he's obviously not the complete solution either. But yeah, look, it all comes down to the manager. He is sticking with this system. I know that was another thing after his comments after Grimsby. A lot of people were thinking maybe he's going to change his system now, but there is no way. After all the things he has said again and again and again, this is my system. I will live and die by this system, and if it doesn't work, I will leave before this system changes. There is no way he is ever playing any other system. And I don't mind that. I don't mind having a system manager. But the only problem with it is every opposition team knows exactly how you play. They know exactly where your players are going to be. They know exactly, and there's nothing, and it's easy for them to then work out how to get around it. And every team, even Grimsby Town in Division 2, which is actually the 4th division. But some people forget nowadays, that's the 4th division. It's not even like the 2nd or 3rd, it's the 4th division. Worked out how to get around R3 and find the spaces to score goals. So yeah, look, again, I unless something, and we're not changing personnel now, I think we've got good players in defence. So it's not down to the players, and it's just only about the system now. So we have seen Amorim improve the attacking side of it, but he's now got to sort out the defence in midfield, and he's got to do it with the players who are there because there's nobody else coming in now. How confident are you now that Amorim is in charge at Christmas time?
I don't. I think he will still be in charge by Christmas, but it could be dicey.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't say I'm majorly confident, and I think Alex asked me in the WhatsApp group. He said, "How come you're not backing Amorim?" Because I'm normally always the one backing every manager. Give them time. We can't be changing now. With Amorim, I'm not sure, and the big difference is because Amorim has not given me anything to show that he's the guy. Eric Ten Hag, he had a good first season. We finished in Champions League places. He's taken us to 2 finals and 1 cup. So that's why I was always like, listen, he has delivered something for us, so I will give him every opportunity. Same with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Back-to-back Champions League finishes. He's taken us to Europa League final. That's why I said he's given me something. Amorim, all right, he did get us to a Europa League final, but we lost it, and we lost it very pathetically. And I think he's had a lot of blame for that himself on who he picked in the starting lineup, changes made over there. So that's why I have not seen enough yet from Ruben Amorim to say he needs to be given a lot of time. So that is the big difference for me. The credit I will give him right now is, like I say, the attacking play is vastly improved. We are playing better attacking wise, and there is some nice football going on there. You can see patterns of play that have definitely come from the coaching side. So on that side, we have improved. But he needs to focus massively on what's going on in the midfield and especially in the defensive areas. Because, our next 2 games are Manchester City and Chelsea. We said right from the start we had a very hard start to the season, and our 2 easy games were Fulham and Burnley. So we got a draw, we got a win, so it's not too bad. And in fact, if you look at the league, we are currently ahead of Manchester City. We are currently ahead of Newcastle. They are 2 off the top 4 from last season. So it's not that bad, is it, league-wise?
No, but it's only 3 games, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. But yeah, I think if we beat City, and to be fair, we beat them last... I always like to look at year-on-year, like, fixture. How do we do last year in that fixture compared to this year? And ultimately, we are currently down. Because we beat Fulham away last year and we drew at Arsenal, so we are 3 points down, I believe, on last year. So and we actually won at City at the Etihad last year, so we kind of have to win. Otherwise, we're going to be 6 points down.
Right, yeah. Well, look, let's see. We will take another quick break there and come back for the last part of the show. Back for part 3 of this podcast. As we say, transfer window has closed. We are in international break.
We haven't really talked about any of the incidents from the Burnley game.
Well, no, we are. Well, we're going to get into that now. So yeah, look, we won this game. We were comfortable. Were you at the game?
I wasn't. I had a family thing, but I managed to watch it on the telly.
So yeah, one just bit of interest is that people were saying, "Are fans still singing for Amorim?" Because there wasn't much at that Grimsby game. There was some chance for him, not a lot. There were more after, of course, we went 2 up, people feeling good. But then, yeah, once we get back to 2-2, there's not. Did you like the Ruben Amorim song?
It's not the best. I don't mind it.
I'm not a big fan of it, but it's very catchy. I also just find myself singing it just because it ends up catching on. But yeah, I do think he, again, is very lucky to have had that kind of backing. But I do know now amongst the match-going fan base, it is now very like, we're not too sure where we're at and we're not fully behind the guy straight away. But look, we did win against Burnley. There was all these penalty incidents. And I think mostly for me, right calls in the end.
Yeah. The only one I would say is on the Mount one. I think it's definitely a foul outside the box. Walker definitely starts the pulling first. But by the time they get into the box, they are definitely both at it. I just wonder if it's clear and obvious, because there is definitely a foul in there, and I don't get how the referee said there's no foul at all, because Walker absolutely definitely fouls him. So the clear and obvious thing is the only one for me on that one. But then what is clear and obvious? Does it exist as a concept? Who knows? The penalty at the end of the game, that's a definite penalty. It's a ridiculous challenge from, was it Foster? Foster who did it. It was, I think. Ridiculous to pull his shirt there. I don't think Ahmad's even getting that ball, so why take the risk? But when it's such an exaggerated shirt pull like that, it will, try run when someone's pulling your shirt that tightly. It's going to hamper you. Even 1%, if it hampers in 1%, it's foul, it's penalty.
Yeah, definitely. As I say, I think the right calls were made. Don't think anyone can complain about them. Even Scott Parker wasn't really complaining about them. He did kind of just make something about, referee didn't see it and why a call's being made 100 miles away or whatever, but he knows himself that that's the right call. And yeah, we should have scored more goals in this game. Ahmad had another very good chance. We should have been up at like 4 XG really. And as I say, I do think the attacking play is pretty good. Whether we go with that at City, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he decides it. Because even though the system and formation is always the same, doesn't mean that we set up and start every game in the same way.
I thought first half, we created a lot of chances, a lot of half chances, a lot of good chances, though. I think Xerxes also had one. There was obviously the Ahmad one, and Boom had a couple of good shots. But I thought the second half, we didn't really create much. We had a couple of balls in the box for Šeško to throw his big head at, which he did, and that was kind of promising in the way that, he's actually getting on the end of chances. That's something that Højlund wasn't doing for vast parts of last season. And just the fact that he's sheer height, he will create headers for himself that probably other players won't. But we didn't create, unless I'm forgetting anything, and obviously we scored the goal, and Buemo's goal, but other than that, did we actually create any big chances? I can't really remember United legend Dubravka making a save in that second half.
There wasn't many. I think we were we thought we'd kind of done our job by half time, didn't we? But obviously, yeah, it didn't roll out like that. Until getting saved by a very, very late penalty. No, there wasn't much. As I say, teams kind of work out how we're playing and go from there, really. So there was the odd chance. Xerxes had one chance in the second half, I remember. I think Bruno had a half kind of chance. There was little ones. And the miss from Ahmad, that was in the second half, wasn't it?
No, it was right at the end of the first half.
Oh,
it was
okay,
towards the Stretford end at the end. But then, so that was a little bit disappointing, I guess. Like, we seem to start games we used to start games terribly, so actually starting games well is quite nice for a change. I think we've started all our Premier League games pretty well. You remember we need to be coaxed into life a while back, but we've started. Fulham we should have been 2 or 3 up as well.
Yeah, and we should have been 2 or 3 up at half time in this game. And then, like you
Yeah.
say, the second half is a whole different match, and they're back to 1-1 within 10 minutes.
Yeah, and then obviously, one good thing was that when they scored that 1-0, we went and scored straight away. That was quite good,
Immediately.
Good to see us bounce back like that. But then obviously, just a long throw in the box and we're done again. Although it's not great keeping from Bayern, but I wouldn't call it a mistake. It's right at him from quite a short distance. I don't even know if he could have really parried it out anywhere else because he was so surrounded by players. But it's not the best keeping in the world, which is why we need a new keeper.
No, I don't blame Bayern for that goal. Again, it's just poor from our centre-backs in defence from... It's not a corner, it's a long throw, but it's the same deal, basically. Big ball coming into the box, and we just don't deal with it again. This is our major problem. And like I say, that is only down to the manager to sort that out. Being weak from set pieces, not clearing that, shouldn't even come to the goalie. This should be dealt with by our defence, and that is where he needs to step up now. And yeah, he's got a couple of weeks in this international break. I've not even had any look at all about which of our players are going on international. Who's playing? What even is this international break? Are we in World Cup qualification? I don't even know what it is.
No clue. It's definitely the worst one, though. The one that's like 3 weeks into the season is always terrible because you've just started the season and then everyone has to bugger off to international duty. I've no idea who England are playing or anything.
No, I have no idea either. We should probably look that up, but we don't care. We don't care. I assume we're in World Cup qualification 2026, unless there's another Nations League thrown in there or something mental like that. But yeah, we've got a couple of weeks for him to focus on the defence with whoever's there around. I suppose actually most of our players probably are away. Yoro, Delit definitely not be around. Luke Shaw, I don't think has been called up, so yeah, maybe he's there. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what he can do there. But yeah, City coming up afterwards. They have had a worse start to the season than us, at least. Spent big money this summer. I don't know, but again, you have no idea. You can't go confident into this Etihad game, can you?
No, because there are games where, like last season, we go there and we actually play well and win. But then there's games like the season before where they just outplay us for 90 minutes. And they win comfortably. So you don't really know which way it's going to go. What you would say is that under Amorim, in these big games, we have generally delivered. I'm thinking back to Anfield last year, that 2-2. Obviously, we beat City at the Etihad. We beat Arsenal at the Emirates in the FA Cup. So we do have these games under our belt where we can actually turn up for these big ones. So you just kind of hope that that's what happens again.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we will come back with that. I want to give out a shout out to Man United women. I did want to try and do a podcast and get Natalie before the WSL season started, but it's already starting this weekend. So yeah, while the international break is on, you can still watch Man United women. WSL starts on Sunday. We are kicking off against Leicester City, but our women have already had 2 very important matches with Champions League qualification. We beat PSV Eindhoven 4-0 and then beat Hammarby of Sweden 1-0. We're now going into a 2-legged final 3rd round of Champions League qualification against Brann of Norway. So yeah, Leicester City this week. We've then got Brann away midweek. We're then playing London City Lionesses, who've been promoted into the WSL. And then it's the second leg against Brann after that at Lee Sports Village. So yeah, while we're on international break with no men's football going on, do check out what the women are doing, and I will get Natalie on whenever I can to give us a big update. I know she's actually not very happy at all about what's going on with the women's transfer window. There's been a couple of signings, 2 Swedish internationals, Zigotti Olme and Fridolino Rolfo have come in, experienced Swedish players, but I think Natalie and a lot of the women's fans were expecting a lot more with us going into our first European season, basically. So yeah, we'll get a bigger update on the women's side while I get a chance. I'll try and do that before this international break finishes, if I can fit that in somewhere. Like I say, we've been spoiling you with podcasts recently because that's 3 within about 7 days. But yeah, look, Ruben Amorim is still here. I would not bet on him being here at Christmas, and the biggest issue is our defence. But as I say, with only 1 game a week, he has plenty of time to work with them. I think now there is no excuses. The only excuse he can have is not getting a midfielder, and he still has some options over there. and I assume he had some kind of say in spending all that money on the attack rather than the midfield. So yeah, it's up to him now. It's all on Amorim. I say he's got a goalie in. He's got plenty of strikers, strike force, firepower to be going in, and yeah, he just needs to sort out our defense basically. So yeah, we will try and come back with a women's podcast. Is there anything else I've forgotten about, Imran?
Not that I can think of.
No. Yeah, try and do a women's podcast in this break, otherwise we'll be back.